France and Britain are tonight locked in an ugly row over responsibility for illegal migrants crossing the English Channel. The Home Secretary was accused of financial blackmail by her French counterpart after Priti Patel threatened to cancel a £54 million payment to help France halt the flow of migrants. The French also claimed that a British plan to push back boats mid-channel was contrary to maritime law. Priti Patel has secured legal advice for border force vessels to start redirecting migrant boats away from British waters and back towards the French coast. The new tactic is said to be ready to be used as early as next month, after border force staff have been trained in how to do it safely. However, several analysts say the technique pioneered in Australia is not safe when used against small dinghies, and that any fatalities would be the Home Secretary's responsibility. Well, in excess of 14,000 migrants have already reached the UK this year, compared to some 8,400. That was for the entirety of 2020. Yesterday, more than 300 migrants were intercepted, with the French reporting they had stopped a similar number on their side of the Channel. Well, in a moment, I'll be joined by marine consultant Bill Castleton and our political editor Darren McCaffrey. But first, what advice would you give to Priti Patel tonight? Is it reasonable to push migrant boats back to France? Tweet me at Colin Brazier and we will intend to share some of your thoughts at the end of the show. Well, Bill Castleton is a marine consultant from Dover who knows the waters of the Channel well. Bill, welcome to you and thanks for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
Yes, I'm from Poole, actually, Colin, not Dover, but I do know the area.
Forgive the error, I do apologise. The perspective from Poole of the English Channel, I'm guessing, is different from what it would be at Dover, but the essence is it's still a narrow and at times treacherous stretch of water. The idea of pushing back boats in the middle of it sounds fairly straightforward and simple, but when you're dealing with small dinghies that could be, I'm guessing, overwhelmed by water fairly easily, how tricky might it be?
I think it would be very tricky. It's very difficult to ascertain whether or not a boat is so-called safe from a distance. These immigrants or migrants are coming across in overcrowded vessels and being turned around and going back, and I've got an image here now, is inherently dangerous. You can physically turn around and go back, but you have to remember that the RNLI, for example, is involved in this, and their Hippocratic oath, if you like, is to save lives at sea, and I cannot see that they would countenance sending people back who are inherently in danger. So I think the practical situation is a difficult one.
I mean, the boat we were just looking at a few moments ago, Bill, I'm not sure whether you could see it, but it was literally, you know, there was no draft left to it. I mean, it was almost been overwhelmed by well, not particularly choppy waters. There it is again. Is there a minimum size of boat which it would be possible to intercept, perhaps lash a rope and tow away, or push with the bow of a larger vessel into more neutral waters? Or, I mean, how big a vessel could that apply to?
Oh, it couldn't apply to any vessel, in my view. When you say that it's relatively calm, conditions can change. For example, if you get a westerly wind through with a tide with it, you'll get a relatively smooth sea. If the tide changes, it always does and goes against the wind, say in a 15-knot wind, you'll get an extremely choppy situation. So you might turn somebody around in relatively calm conditions in the mid-channel, 10 miles out. They're going about, 3 or 4 miles an hour, knots. Conditions can change drastically before they theoretically reach the French coast back again. So they're being pushed into danger, whatever happens.
But even some of the larger rib boats, which are a bit more substantial than the little dinghy with the outboard motor we just saw, could you not lash a rope to that and start towing it?
Technically speaking, yes. If the rib was safe, you've got to remember that these boats are given, shall we say, or stolen or whatever, to these poor people by operators, and they're probably not in very good condition themselves. They rely on buoyancy for the tubes or sponsons, as they're called. Those sponsons may be leaking, I don't know. It's very difficult to ascertain whether or not a boat is safe to do anything with from a distance.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.